Hello and welcome to another Daily Muppet. In today's video, we are going to talk about some transfer related things and give an update on where the INEOS led 25% partial takeover, purchase, what have you, of Manchester United stands today as things look to move forward shortly. So let's get right into it. All right, I've got my little yellow boxes back so I can actually think clearly as I walk through these videos and to make it easier for you to follow, easier for you to keep up with everything going on. I've got a lot to discuss, I believe. So let's start with center backs. I posted some information about this in the Discord earlier this week, but essentially, as it stands right now, you can obviously see that the balance of center backs at United is not correct. You have, of course, Lisandro Martinez, who is out with now the same injury that did not fix, and there are concerns over his long-term health. You have Harry Maguire, who they had been looking to sell, who is now our first choice center back once again this season and performing quite well. You have Rafael Varane, who is seemingly not on good terms with the manager. I'll talk about that in a minute, or not wanted by the manager. And you have Johnny Evans, who is now injured and obviously should not be under consideration for a major choice at center back anyway. And then you have Victor Lindelof, who I don't think is anybody's preferred choice at this point in time in that midfield position. In that center back position. So, first and foremost, with regards to Rafael Varane, I don't know what the details are, but there is something in terms of an issue between Erik ten Hag and him. And just frankly, he's not viewed at this point in time by Ten Hag as someone who gets in, to the point where he feels Johnny Evans is a better player for the left side than playing Rafael Varane and Maguire together. I guess that means because he wants Maguire to be on the right and thinks right now he's better than Rafael Varane on the right for ball progression. I don't know what the reason is exactly, but either way, it hasn't really gone down well. And it isn't something that they're on great terms about. And that's just what it is at the moment. And, I think that there was an interesting comment from someone. Obviously, I don't want to dive too far into this kind of stuff because I don't know enough to say anyone's to blame or anything like that. But there was an interesting comment about someone made, and I saw someone who's very intelligent retweeted something about this that was just with regards to, one of the issues that Ten Hag has is that he is very strict on certain profiles to the point where it's kind of at the detriment because it's not, there's no creativity in it. And when you're playing Johnny Evans over Rafael Varane because of the left foot, I think it is a bit much. I'm not saying Rafael Varane was good yesterday. I don't know. But he was good for a lot of the season. And anyway, regardless, the situation is as it is. We know that they've been looking at center backs, as I said earlier in the year. Inacio, whatever. Inacio from Portugal was high up on the list, and I thought maybe it's for next summer, and I think it is for this next summer. But the four major names are Antonio Silva, Inacio, Todibo, and Jared Braithwaite. And from what I understand at this point in time, Jean-Claire Todibo is very likely to be the next center back signing. And that obviously means you're thinking with a right center back, with which makes sense because Varane out of favor and Maguire could even still leave. But either way, having Todibo and Maguire or Todibo and Varane makes sense to me. Either way, you have a veteran, a younger, exciting player. And the thing with Todibo right now, where it makes it very likely from the way that I gather it from all sides, is he's a player, a lot of the recruitment side of things is kind of on hold because who they want right now may not be who is wanted or the decisions that are made as soon as INEOS get in, which we'll definitely talk about quite a bit here. But Todibo, of course, playing at Nice, is a player that has approval from basically everybody. Is a great modern day center back that would fit in nearly any system, and a deal would be easy to complete. It would also not fall afoul of the rules, because if INEOS come in is at a 25% ownership as a minority investor, they would still be allowed to loan the player, as far as I understand, or sell the player or do anything, actually. So as a minority investor, that still should not be a problem, the multi-club aspect. So I think that is certainly the main name I'd keep an eye on right now. And I think it's a good name, good player, but obviously still these kind of things are subject to change once people get in and put their hands dirty. But those are still the four main names that I'm hearing. I know that Gerard Braithwaite is still someone really liked by people at United. So we'll see. And obviously one of the things with this is that over the years, I've had what I feel has been incredibly accurate information when it comes to certain parts of the club in terms of targets, who they're looking at and all of that. However, the decision-making on who they actually pursue has usually come down to who the manager wants. That might be something totally different to who the scouts and analysts and other people want, or who Ed Woodward or Joe Glazer wants in terms of, the past and present. So my hope is, and this would be a good sign for United, it's not about my info, but it would be a good sign, is if the targets I hear end up being the targets that we pursue, the ones we're watching all year end up being very specifically the targets that we pursue, because that would indicate we're actually planning things and doing things the right way and following through the right way. So we'll see once INEOS get in, But once they get in, it sure could change because you might have new people and all of that. But, it's just something to think about. In terms of winger, one of the things that I also, to go back to the center back thing really fast and wrap that up, there is a good chance that Rafael Varane will leave in summer. There's interest. There's nothing like ongoing in terms of talks, but there is interest from Saudi and there's interest from elsewhere too. In terms of winger, as I understand it, United, it's kind of known at this point in time. It's acknowledged that Anthony is not playing well, that he's not living up to the signing, and that he has not nailed down the first team position. And so they're looking at more forwards and certainly looking at someone who can play on the right. We talked about the names and obviously the Jadon Sancho situation too. We talked about the names of, Nusa, Williams, Yeremy Pino. Another name to add on to that is Marcus Edwards, as I understand it, and someone just to keep in mind. Again, all of this subject to change, but certainly that is someone I would keep in mind there. We've scouted a lot of people in Portugal over the years and tend to not go for them even when they seem to be top targets, and we've watched them for ages, like Diogo Costa and Darwin Nunez and things like that. But maybe when management changes, and I don't mean manager, I mean management of the club changes, we will follow through on that, on these types of things a little bit more. So we'll see, but that will be an area of focus, I think, almost certainly anyway, regardless of takeover and all of that. In terms of the midfield, as I said before, this was true as of last summer. It still remains true. Casemiro could go to Saudi. There's interest from the Saudi league in him and bringing him to one of the clubs. And I think it's likely that he does leave. United have already been looking at lining up replacements. The name I mentioned before, Ezequiel Palacios, is having a great season at Leverkusen, who I think are top of the Bundesliga this year. And I'm sure there will be other names. I'm sure that's something that could change as well, very much so in terms of targeting and profiles and things like that. But regardless, yeah, I think that is something they're still looking into. And as I hear it, nothing has really changed on the concept that Casemiro is likely to leave. next summer, and definitely Saudi could be an option, and the interest is there. So if United decide to move forward on that, then then that's that. Let me just see before I get into the next thing. All right, so finally moving on to the takeover aspect of things. Now I want to make something very clear here, that you've got to be have to be specific on certain things and unspecific on other things. But I want to be clear here. What I'm saying is not, when I'm talking about this deal, this is not like legal stuff. I have no association legally to INEOS or Glazers or anyone like that. So what I'm talking about is, an understanding of the situation as it is. And there's a difference between things looking like they're agreed and things actually done. In the case of this deal with INEOS, when this deal is officially completed, it will, of course, be announced to the New York Stock Exchange. Now, there's an interesting thing because there was an interview with one of the Class A shareholders, and it's funny because some people seem to think that the Class A shareholders, they seem to think that it's that if a Class A shareholder doesn't know where the deal is at, or something like that, then that has any implication on where the deal is at. Because the Class A shareholders said they don't understand, they don't know where this is. I think from Lindsell Train, saying they don't know where this is at. They don't know how it's going to wrap up. They don't know where it's going to finish. The thing to understand is that if a Class A shareholder had inside information, if any shareholder, by the way, had inside information on where the INEOS takeover was, and I don't actually own any shares in Manchester United for a good reason, if they had any inside information on where this takeover was, and it was ahead of the New York Stock Exchange or ahead of an official announcement, and they were to sell or buy shares, it would be illegal. And it's called insider trading. If you have insider information that is private, that is not published, that is not put out there in the proper channels, and you make trades based on that, it's insider trading. And as a very layman definition, the last thing that any major shareholder would do at Manchester United is to say they know where a deal is at in terms of insider information. The official stance will always be that they don't know until it is officially announced. And there is no responsibility of the people involved, as far as I know, as far as I can understand as well, to announce anything until something is actually formalized. And once it is actually formalized in the form of pen to paper, written, voted on, which is a legal process, then it has to be announced to the New York Stock Exchange. Well, what is announcing it to the New York Stock Exchange? That's to the shareholders. So the shareholders will find out, as I've said all along, when you're talking about share price and things like that, the share price is not dictated by insider information. It's dictated by information that's publicly available to everybody. And so shareholders, big and small, will find out where this deal is at the same time as everybody else, officially. That being said, my information has always been my own information that is given to me from my own sources, that is done does not have anything to do with any of that. And as I understand it right now, I mentioned on my podcast with Phil earlier this week, and I think the week prior, but that there were what I had understood to be basically endgame talks on this 25% takeover, 25% purchase with future steps towards a takeover this week. And as I understand it today, the deal around the 25% takeover is basically fully agreed. And they have been working on all of the details, the layout, the specifics, the plans, as well as, of course, the future steps like we've always talked about, what happens next, the route to more ownership, what happens with debt and all of that. And from what I can gather, I believe at this point in time, the deal in its entirety is essentially done. And, or is at least pretty much into, the legal stages, with an expectation and a plan that right now they would like to announce something next week. That would be a plan, and that would be what they would like to do, is to announce something next week. And I think that that is possible based on everything that I've heard. There's nothing, not a single thing that has indicated as of yet that there's anything wrong. It has been steadily moving forward smoothly towards completion, and I think we're virtually there now. And obviously they would like to then announce it, which means they would like to have it ratified, legally agreed, and formally announced to the right people and done in all the right possible ways next week during the international break. And I think that there's a possibility of that, a good possibility of that. There have continued to be those final talks and and I think involving the more legal side of things. There have been, obviously there was confirmation, that there's been talks with Jim Ratcliffe and such with regards to the sporting side of things. There's a story this morning from Alan Nixon, who says that Jim Ratcliffe will be in charge by Monday. I don't know if it'll be that quickly, but certainly, yeah, next week. I think the funeral for Sir Bobby is on Monday, and I wouldn't expect anything before that, but you never know. With these kind of things, once it's formally done, it does have to be announced very quickly. So I don't think it can be, it can be planned to some degree because you can kind of not sign and not vote, but with a deal like this, you kind of don't hold off on doing it. So we'll see, but they would like to have something announced next week on this. That would be the plan. That's what they're hoping for. And, plans change, but certainly as of now, that is kind of what I'm hearing, and I find that information to be pretty good. Yeah. So if nothing were to be strongly, or more formally done over the international break, I would be surprised, and then I would start to wonder. But without getting into detail, I think it's pretty much there now. So yeah, that's what I have on that. It should be moving forward. Now, as I've said before, the INEOS side of things, their focus overall is to replace and make changes at the executive and board level when it comes to running the football club, to put in place football people, to put in place potentially, Jean-Claude Blanc as a CEO, or at least acting. And I think that those types of things are definitely going to happen. I think that, it's not as certain something like Paul Mitchell, just because I don't know, what they want, what they like, who they're interested in isn't the same as it getting appointed. Obviously, Blanc is someone already in INEOS, so it's a little simpler to have him working in the area. Paul Mitchell's not an employee of INEOS. So obviously they'd like to do those things. Now, here's where it gets a little bit tricky. Obviously, a lot of talk on the manager side of things. And you get different people, different sides, different sources talking about safe, not safe, everything. And myself included, and it's been a little confusing. Part of it is this. I don't think that INEOS want to change manager. However, the way that you have to kind of look at it, and this is how it's been described to me, how Jim Ratcliffe and such have been described to me. When they went in and bought Nice, they initially, for a few years, him, Brailsford, he had his brother involved, were more hands-on making decisions and doing things and putting their hands inside the football club to do things. And it wasn't working that well. And the way it was described to me is that Jim Ratcliffe understand that was happening, understood that it wasn't working, saw that it was not getting the results they wanted, and they decided to back off. And they did. They made significant changes in how they managed the club, pulled back some of the INEOS people from being directly involved in it, appointed a new director of football who put together a manager and started really handling all the recruitment. And obviously this season we can see the results are definitely improved so far, and they're doing something pretty incredible at the moment. So that's the way he views it. So it's a little confusing because you might see, well, INEOS like this, or, Brailsford likes this, and that doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to have anything to do with the decisions that are made at the club. They don't want to be the ones to change the manager or to keep the manager necessarily. They don't necessarily want to be the ones making that decision. They want to appoint the right people who will make that decision. And that's how it should be. As I've mentioned before, I do believe that the people they're looking to appoint are considering a change in manager. Whether now or at the end of the season, I'm not sure. Maybe it's a contingency plan, because if things continue to go the way that they are, you kind of have to make a change. But they are considering a change at manager, and they have been looking at specific people for that. And I don't know who it's going to be. I don't know that that means a change will be made. Obviously, they want to focus on everything else. But yeah, the people they appoint may be the ones who want to make a change. So you can get some confusion, because the people at the club right now are not going to make a change. INEOS aren't really looking to make a change, but if they appoint people and they decide, hey, we need to make a change, then they will. And they are looking at that, and they are considering potentially a manager change. Could be a contingency, could be now, could be the end of the season. It could just be things get ugly over the next few weeks. And, obviously you could see like a loss to Luton at the weekend being potentially a breaking point in terms of results. And I'm not saying either way. My view on all of this is, with manager, with players, with staff, it's really, really simple. I don't care. If the football people are appointed and the right people are in place at the executive level, at the board level, at the directors level, and the decisions are being made based on football reasons right now, then I don't care. Whatever they want to do. Keep the manager, change the manager, keep players, sell players. No attachment from me. I want what's best for the football club. Whatever they decide is the best thing, it will be the right people making the decisions, and they know better than we do and I do. And I would not necessarily say that's been the case at Manchester United for years. So that's my view on it. And part of the view may be it's not about them coming in and saying, hey, should we sack the manager? They have no history with United. So it's more like, let's say they're coming in and thinking, we don't have a manager. Who's the best manager for United? Like a new process. It could be Ten Hag. He's going to have to interview for the job too, even though he's already in it, to talk about his ideas, principles, etc., and match it up with their ideas, principles, and see if it's the right fit. So that's kind of the way that I look at it. Is it's almost like you might, if you have a whole new football structure coming in, they might look at it like we're starting from scratch. This is the style we want. We need to find a manager that fits it. Maybe it's the manager who's already there. Maybe it's not. We need to find players who fit it. Maybe it's some of the players who are there. Maybe many are not. And I think that that is the way it's going to be viewed moving forward. I don't think that there's a lot of value from a lot of people in football on Manchester United as a project, like that there's something to continue, because it is still a complete mishmash of profiles, of styles, of ideas, and everything. So that's what I have right now. Let's see what the coming week brings into the international break. I am sure we will get some news in the next few days. I'm sure we will get some news in the next few days that will, in alignment with a lot of this, and will hopefully keep us up to date on where things are at. But I do expect that next week should be significant, and that is the plan right now. Okay, thank you for watching this video. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications on. See you in the next one.